So the resolution, there should be a fine for not voting. Round one, first affirmative constructive speech.
In Australia, there's a $20 fee for not voting. And when they placed this fee, 80% of the voting turnout increased. 57.5% of voters in the U.S. actually voted in the last 2012 election, which is higher because it's a presidential election and it's higher than normal elections. People who don't vote aren't necessarily uneducated. They just know that the political system looks down upon them, and they think that if they vote, that their vote won't count. But in reality, their vote will change the way the political system views them. Creating a fee is more likely to create an engaged, knowledgeable group of voters instead of just people voting because they have to. They're more likely to go out and spend 20 minutes researching each candidate and finding out who they prefer. Democracy only works if you have voters and people participating in it.
First negative constructive speech.
Obviously, we don't believe citizens who do not vote should pay a fine. Voting is not something we are required to do as citizens, and if we're not choosing to do so, we should not have to pay. For starters, some citizens may not be able to afford their own transportation to the polling place. There are people who do not have their own car or other way of getting to wherever they need to go, and so the fine would only end up hurting them. Another reason is the registering to vote would mean that your name is put in the pool of jury duty members. If you're called in to do jury duty, there isn't much you can do to be excused from it. If you're not able to make the time, who's worth $10 to some dollars a day in jury duty, you should not do it. So don't charge me for not voting for not doing jury duty. Thank you.
Second affirmative constructive speech.
Voting is a part of your responsibility in a democracy. If you don't want the responsibility, find a non-democratic country to live in. If you won't take the time to vote, you deserve to be fined for your complete and total lack of interest in your civic duty. As people get fined for not voting, they will become more informed and more involved and feel more positively about their country, and will realize that they really have a lot more power to change things than they ever thought they did. Not participating in voting only demonstrates how dense you are to believe that politics don't concern you, and it discredits the thousands of people who fought to keep our country a democracy and a place of equality. Not voting should not be an option. Being unpatriotic should not be an option, but being fined for not voting should be the only option.
Second negative constructive speech.
So by creating a fine for citizens who don't vote, we're obviously getting people who don't vote to vote who would otherwise not voted. Which on the surface, it seems like a good idea. I mean, this is a democratic country, isn't it? But you have to take into account why people aren't voting. 17.5% of voters have a schedule too busy to make it to a voting ballot. 12.9% don't like the candidates on campaign issues. By making voting a requirement, we would be forcing people who aren't fully educated or decided to pick someone to lead the country. This would skew the results of the election, for suddenly people are voting because they have to, not because they want to. Without any knowledge of the candidates, instead of the true intent of this beautiful country we call home. Instead of voting because we're the land of the free, we're voting because we're the land of the trapped. The land of the people who say, who have to have no say in what they do. Forced to vote for poor candidates, damning our once beautiful nation to an eternity in hell. Not to mention, another 14.9% of people who don't vote cite the reason for not voting as a disability. That means that by creating a non-voting fee, we spit in the face of every disabled person stuck to a wheelchair at home that wants nothing more than to support our beautiful country. A fee for not voting would force people to vote for an unworthy candidate and punish anyone stuck in a wheelchair.
Okay, discussion period. This time is unstructured but controlled by the chair. No new arguments may be introduced. Questions may be asked and answered. Further supporting evidence may be introduced. So, affirmative side, do you have any questions?
You said that when you vote, you have to be placed, you have to do jury duty. But jury duty is a civic duty, and as an American citizen, you should have to do that. So, by saying you shouldn't vote and escaping jury duty, you're just throwing away your civic duties. As an
So
American
if you
citizen.
had to have one word to describe America, what would you pick?
Free.
Free. So you're saying that we shouldn't have to be forced to do anything that's, we don't want to do. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying we should be
democracy.
Are you saying it's democracy, so we should be able to choose what we want to do?
We should be able to choose our leaders. We should be able to choose our leaders.
Okay, so you're kind of contradicting yourself. You're saying we should be able to choose, how we live our lives and what we do. Maybe I don't want to vote, but you're saying we have to.
Voting discredits.
Communism.
Can't vote in a communist country. That's the point. Voting discredits all the hard work that everybody went through to be able to vote and get the right to be able to do so. When you don't vote, you're throwing that away.
Okay, but you'd say that this is a democratic country, right?
Republican.
You'd say we have the choice to vote. You'd say that the people.
I think that we should. I think we do have the choice to vote, but I think we should be required as a citizen.
Okay.
As
Would you?
a citizen,
What do you think it means when someone doesn't vote?
that they don't, that they're not participating in democracy and they're not fulfilling their civic duties.
And have you ever had Vegemite?
No,
So have you ever been to Australia?
no, I'm not.
So that's pretty out of context. We're talking about Australian votes, right? Let's tell what
It's
happened.
looking at other statistics in other countries.
And
Compare it to see what would happen if we did
so you
charge
said,
a fine. That's
in
only
yours, this is-
$20 that doesn't affect you that much.
this is a quote from yours. People who aren't voting aren't necessarily uneducated. Where did that fact come from?
It was, sorry, hold on. Wait a second.
Because it really didn't sound like a fact to me. It
No.
kind of sounded like you made it up.
I didn't. I didn't make it up. Hold on.
And you also said that if we had to vote, we would have to research each and every candidate. Can you back
I
that
didn't
up?
say every, I didn't say each and every candidate.
Well, you
I
said that-
You
you
take
said
20
that-
minutes out of your time.
You said that people
You
would
can
take 20 minutes out of
You
their
can
time.
take 20 minutes out of your time to research and decide which candidate you agree with would be most just by basics.
Well, 17.5% of voters have a schedule too busy to make it to a voting ballot. So, I mean, you're adding even more time into a busier schedule where people can't make it.
They put voting polls in places in all around the community so to make it easier for you.
Isn't it true that you can mail your ballot in as well? I thought that was in there. Like you can
Did you
mail.
vote?
Did I vote?
Mm.
I
So,
mean, not really.
I don't know if I can do this. How long does it take to vote, the whole process?
That's not part of the debate. You wouldn't want to ask your mediator something that you don't
I went
know.
with my sister to vote and it took
It's
total
okay.
5 minutes to go in line and go all the way through. Took 5 minutes. So you can't take 5 minutes out of your time to go to a voting place and vote. You're telling me you don't have 5 extra
Okay, discussion point is